There's something very abstract about the desert when you first approach it. It's just the sky meeting the horizon. When you start moving in the desert and you start digging deeper, you suddenly discover that it's constantly changing, that it's an extremely rich environment, that it's inhabited. I studied music. I'm originally a trained musician, and so when I see a scientist or an expert, an architect work on something very specific, I kind of try to tune into that practice and try to amplify it, to make a connection with some other practice. I've been researching and asking these questions through many different pieces. In truths, for example, I'm looking at how mosquitoes synchronize their wing flapping to each other. Or in synchronicity, I was looking at how hundreds of fireflies can flash in unison and how they can synchronize their flashing to a metronome. But I also wonder how flocks of birds coordinate, how they create these shapes in the sky. And for example, in Song for Ghost Travelers, I work with the flight of pigeons, to which I attach little flutes, so their flight path produces a sound, and they interact with musicians on the ground that play with them. I'm really interested in discovering how things can naturally organize in the world, how order can emerge out of something chaotic on its own.
For me, there is an existing condition in every landscape, in every geography, and the job as a landscape architect is to reveal this condition, to produce a new story. Every morphology of the desert produces a specific experience according to the height of the dunes, the direction of the wind, the different temperature, the presence of shade or not.
In the 60s and in the early 70s, many architectural and artist collectives were trying to work with ephemeral structures. They were trying to find out another way of living and another kind of relationship with the environment. For the moment, we are working with plastics. It's like the material that lets us to test our concepts. But the final shelters will be made with spinnaker. Spinnaker is the material of the sails of the boats. When the sun is hitting the air inside of the structures, the density of this air is getting lower than the surrounding air. Like this volume of air is able to float.
In the project we're planning, in the project we're developing, we're going to collaborate with a host of actors. We'll work with pigeons, for example. We'll work with cars that will move around. We'll work with the sound of the dunes. We'll try to harmonize with the sound of the dunes through musical improvisations. I think when encountering the desert, when encountering the world around you, when you start really listening what is happening around you and start entering in a dialogue with the world, you suddenly notice that your place isn't in the center of it all. You're part of a large network that is there before you, that will be there after you, and that you can navigate. It's just an entangled mess of organisms and things and phenomena around you which are just happening and which you can choose to interact with, and sometimes you can't choose, they're just greater than you. But it just puts you in a more interesting place.